Perhaps unlike Newsnight's own ethical man Justin Rolat, I arrive with good green credentials. I'm a former card-carrying member of the Ecology Party. I volunteered for a few years in Friends of the Earth shop and have devised and delivered environmental workshops. I was an early convert to anti-nuclear and an early believer in global warming. I'm a long-standing ferocious recycler, compost maker, and strict vegan. And yes, I do have a beard, I wear sandals and I bake my own bread. However, I have been starting to have doubts. Not about the facts or about truth, but about how to bring about change. Small may be highly attractive, but is it enough? Take energy-saving light bulbs, for example. To the committed environmentalists, they're a good idea regardless of their price in the shops. Energy-saving light bulbs, as well as saving the planet, have always been marketed on the basis that they will save you money in the long term. The arithmetic ought to be compelling. However, paying £1 or two for one light bulb will never have the same appeal as paying £1 for 4 cheap light bulbs from Tesco's. Cheap incandescent light bulbs may be more expensive to run compared with their fluorescent counterparts, but they are much, much cheaper to buy. Until fluorescent light bulbs are actually cheaper to buy than incandescent bulbs, or until the incandescent variety are outlawed, inviting the majority of people to save small amounts of money over a year or two by spending much more now will never work. Only government legislation can cure this ill. Or take another example, cheap air travel. Justin Rolat was given grief over his trip to Jamaica, but how many people would willingly forego a trip to Jamaica or New York or Barcelona in order to save the planet by a minuscule fraction of a tiny percentage? I am one of those people who have discovered Manhattan, Miami and Malaga solely because flights that used to be expensive are now cheap. I'm not eager to forego these newfound pleasures. The issue deepens when I think about the kind of world or country in which I wish to live. I like a lot that ordinary people now expect to move around the world. 40 years ago, half my family set sail for a new life in Canada and I never saw them again for 30 years. Now we can afford to visit each other every couple of years. That is the kind of world in which I wish to live. At what price? If the to keep it happening, then make it so. However, I can't grow, refine and distribute biokerosene. Neither will the planet be saved by me composting my potato peelings and powering off the standby. The doubts to which I confessed earlier arise from the realisation that our planet is not in my hands, nor even in the collective hands of cyclists, recyclers, composters and environmental eco-warriors, but in the hands of local, national and supranational governments. Maybe the inhabitants of Polperro, Plymouth and Perth have already realised this, or at least recognised their own impotence. I like the prospect of having a wind turbine in my garden and solar panels on the roof, but towns, cities and industry have to be powered by industrial-sized wind farms. I like the idea of running my car on used chip fat, but public transport requires a biodiesel infrastructure. I love the idea of using public transport to commute to and from work, but government money would be required to extend the Tyne and Wear Metro a further 15 miles to my village. I guess that my personal efforts are gestures to show willing. I guess that a sizable proportion of the UK population could be temporarily spooked or terrorised into accepting necessary change, although the fuel protests of a few years ago called even that into question. But what about the developing economies of China, India, Brazil and, of course, the US? If my puny efforts to flee on an elephant's back in the UK, what is their worth in a world of 6.5 billion people? That is why I'm having doubts.